My name is Karen Reed. I'm 44 years old. I've never been married. I don't have any kids. I don't envision myself having the white picket fence bullshit. I've worked in a financial services company for decades. I was a lecturer at Bentley University. Now I'm being charged with murdering a Boston police officer. I could face life for second degree, life in prison. So as we approach trial, I'm moving to a hotel in Boston. It's weird, you're used to working all day and having a life and a career and a routine, and then you don't have it, and now you're fighting for your life. I still can't believe what's happening to me.
We make this prayer to Christ our Lord.
Amen. Amen. Very nice. Very good.
I've lived most of my life in Massachusetts. I have an older brother and a younger sister, so I'm in the middle. Definitely the most outgoing. I've always been very reactionary and I guess a little maybe impetuous. I'm private, but I'm open, so when I'm with people, I'll tell them anything.
All right, then, let's not get much of that.
Welcome back to Lifestyles of the Almost Rich and Famous. And I am your host, the lovely, the beautiful Karen Reed.
When she was a young girl, she would do plays constantly when we'd have, if we had cookouts or the pool.
We're gonna watch Mom. Everything you do is grand.
She always brought a lot of fun to, yeah, she's got a great personality, she really does.
This is my darling daughter.
I was dean of business at Bentley University. I did that up until the time this event transpired.
Health, holiness, and happiness for everybody here.
My father loved his job so much, and there's an old phrase, you love your job, you never work a day in your life, and that's my dad. And I mean, my dad's gonna be 76, I've just turned 44, and I need my dad more than ever. John died 2 years, 2 months ago, and we dated maybe just shy of 2 years.
Okay, first thing you need is the graham crackers. You reach into the bag and you pull out a set of graham crackers. Okay, also inside the bag, if you look, there is some chocolate bars.
Johnny and I grew up together on the same street. We met when we were 4. I went to the same nursery school. And we went to school, elementary, junior high, high school, all the way through. Stayed close friends during college. Stayed close friends when I was moving around the country for my job. He'd visit me wherever I lived. So I knew Johnny for over 40 years.
John and I argued the morning of the 28th, Friday morning. Most of our arguments were about his kids and that he thought I spoiled them. And I thought it was a real low blow of him to get on me for that. It pissed me off. And I said, I gotta get out of here for a minute. So I came down here to my house in Mansfield, sat in the other room, and I worked remote all day. That day, everyone was getting ready for this massive blizzard, but I realized I didn't want to be shut in here with the snow. I'd rather be up there with John and the kids and doing something fun, and we always had fun on the weekends. And then at about 6 p.m., either I called my father or he called me, and he said, how was your day? What are you up to? And I told him what happened. And I hated complaining about John to my parents because they liked him a lot. And my father just said gently to me, Karen, why don't you stay home tonight? It's gonna snow. But I didn't. Dad, if I listened to you, none of this would have happened. I think I left here in Mansfield at 8:30, and I met John at a bar in Canton, C.F. McCarthy's, at 9. And then we went to the waterfall right next door to McCarthy's. At the waterfall, it was Jen and Matt McCabe. We saw Jen McCabe all the time. She coached John's niece's basketball team, so we saw her 2 or 3 times a week. And then Brian and Nicole Albert and Brian Higgins were there. My attitude always when I was out and about with John was, you know, he's got to blow off steam. It suits us all if John blows off a little steam, because he always has steam. So I said, sure, let's go. This can't last forever, right? So I'm driving, and John got on the phone with Jen, and he's telling me it's 34 Fairview. And we arrive at 34 Fairview. So when John got out of the car, he took my full vodka soda, which is sitting in the cup holder. And he walked up the driveway, and John always walked, kind of skipped and walked at the same time. He was always in a rush. And I saw him reach the breezeway door, and I waited probably a minute, and he doesn't come. And it only took like 2 or 3 minutes for me to be irritated. So I called him. I didn't want to wait for him to respond to a text, and he didn't answer. I said, you've got to be kidding me. What are you doing? You just went in and I'm sitting here. Either we're welcome or we're not, but it shouldn't take you 5 minutes to determine that. And then about 10 minutes went by, and I left, and I was not happy. But little did I know, John was not getting my phone calls. And then that was it. The last I ever talked to him was when he got out of my car at Brian Albert's house.
When I heard that an officer was killed, I knew that there's a heightened sense of importance that is given to those cases. Even if prosecutors thought that they had a case that they couldn't prove, they were not going to let this one go. It became clear that this was going to require a lot of work. So somebody else would have to be brought in.
So I called Harvard's Criminal Justice Institute, and a professor got on the call, and he said, you need to look into the Kevin Spacey case. That's how I found Alan Jackson and Liza Little.
Good afternoon, customers. This is just arrived on flight 28A from Los Angeles. Your bags are being offered on carousel number 7. Welcome to Boston.
My name is Alan Jackson. I'm an attorney in Los Angeles. I got an email, and the subject line of the email was something along the lines of murder of a Boston cop. And I took one look at one of the autopsy photos of John O'Keefe, and I said, are you kidding me? He was hit by a car?
And I actually remember Alan calling me into his office and saying, Liza, you gotta read this. You'll like this case.
Nice, 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 nice. This is perfect. Where are our boxes?
In this little corner.
Shit.
But this
Oh my God. Karen, do me a favor
No.
and just unpack all this shit
You were
and
gonna
make
say
sense.
That's why I said no. I will, though.
We're right on the cusp of the trial. It's gonna start in a couple of weeks.
Most of this is just for the courtroom, right?
So there's 3 sets of witness
No.
finders.
I'm on trial for my life right now, but I'm not afraid of whatever emotional or mental hurdles I know I will be facing in the next 2 months. I know I'm innocent.
I like it. Welcome home. In this case, everybody has an opinion, and it's binary. Either you think that she did it, backed into her boyfriend with her SUV, and there he lay, and tragically he passed away. Or you think, wait a minute, something doesn't sound right about that. None of the evidence fits. Evidence was missed, bizarrely missed, and then later found.
There are 2 conflicting, contrasting theories, and the public doesn't have an answer yet. So it's sort of a classic whodunit.
We need to look deeper at what actually happened to John O'Keefe.
I'm looking at a police report that says that she accidentally hit her boyfriend with a car. And based on what she said, my thoughts were, this is a district court motor vehicle homicide case. Stakes are much lower, but of course the case became much more than that after that. The first time Karen was arrested, I remember going back to my home office that afternoon, and my paralegal told me that a guy named Mike had called the office and he has important information for me. I called him back, and I have a memory of sitting at my desk at home in my office. And, you know, he had a gravelly voice, and You know, it was like a holy smokes moment, because he said that perhaps someone else caused the death of John O'Keefe.
Very early on in the case, it was just the fog of war, right? David didn't know what he was dealing with. He comes in on this case. He had never met Karen before. She's accused of hitting this guy, a cop, with her car, and he ends up dying. And David is standing there with his hands out going, I wonder what happened. I need some evidence. I don't have anything. But then he got a call at his office, and this person said, in almost whispered tones, you need to look at the folks inside 34 Fairview. You need to look really hard at the homeowners. You need to look really hard at the occupants of the house. Something here is more than meets the eye.
We didn't have any inkling that there might have been somebody else out there who did it. So, you know, it was a turning point. I called him into my office, and he came and sat with my investigator and me, and you know, it didn't really go anywhere with him beyond that. It's not like he was a witness or that we could use him, but that tip was invaluable because it sent us in a different direction very early on in this investigation.
Had that tipster never provided that information, I'm not sure if we'd necessarily be here. Because initially David was saying something to the effect of it was a bad accident and she's not criminally liable. But then after this tipster, we start seeing the new defense, which is they're saying Karen Reed's been framed.
The people in the house that night included Brian Albert, the owner of the home, and Brian Higgins. Brian Albert is a Boston police officer. He's the head of a fugitive unit. Brian Higgins is a federal ATF agent and friends with the chief of police of the Canton Police Department. This all happened outside of the home of a Boston police officer. And so for the first 2 years of this case, we knew something wasn't right, and we were fighting tooth and nail to try to get access to cell phone data, electronic information that we knew was the key to this case. You can't prove a conspiracy by just asking tough questions of witnesses. You have to have the data to back that up. One of the things that we've tried extraordinarily hard in this case to do is to uncover all of the electronic communications. How do you prove a conspiracy? You need to see people's phones. We live in the 21st century. That's how conspiracies are conducted.
Starting next week, apparently we can't have any gear that says Karen Reed. We basically are gonna have to put duct tape over our mouth.
Judge Cannoni doesn't want any outside influences or distractions. She's got to make sure the case is tried within the four walls of that courtroom.
I can tell you from my experience with this community, they are not going to be muzzled.
We were trying to figure out how we could get around that buffer zone, and everyone said we should wear a certain color. Karen Reed said, I love pink, or something of that sort, and it snowballed from there.
Pink because it's Karen's favorite color. We love her.
Free Karen Reed, let freedom ring! Woo!
I wanted it to be something feminine, that they wouldn't confuse it with justice for John either and think we're pro-prosecution.
You're looking damn
I appreciate that. Thank you. You guys look great in the pink. I love it.
And I do like the color pink. I don't wear it ever, but I like it. So I just said pink.
Honestly, we had no idea going into this how many jurors we were going to be able to find that could be fair and neutral. Everyone's read the media about this. There's a lot of people who know what's going on.
How are you feeling about the jury's?
We're very pleased. Yeah, we're happy that we have a jury, and we're looking forward to starting it.
It's just bizarre. I'm facing life in prison, and now these strangers are going to decide how I live the rest of my life.
Arguably, I've said this many times, jury selection, that's your trial.
You will question the shoddy and biased investigation that was done, a faulty investigation that's led to Karen Reed sitting here today.
We're working on our opening statement, And we're all on edge right now. Like, this is showtime.
And you will reasonably doubt their case because Karen Reed was framed, and the evidence tends to show that.
Immediately off the top of my head, I don't ever want you or me or Liza or anybody else to say tens to prove that she didn't do it.
Yeah.
We're not trying this case to a hanging jury. We're trying this case to an acquittal.
Yeah.
You sleep okay?
Yeah.
Did you sleep at all?
I did. I watched TV and like chilled out, and then I got up at 4 and
Got up at
was
4?
like, "Rah!"
Jesus
Big day.
Christ. There's no way that we could be more prepared.
I'm emotionally prepared. I'm not emotionally looking forward to it, and I know I'm gonna have emotions that I'm not completely expecting.
Go get him, Karen.
But I've steeled myself for it, and these last 2.5 years have prepared me for it. They say it's become a circus. It's not about justice for John, it's all about the Karen Reed case. I mean, it's my life and my trial, but the Karen Reed case is trying to get justice for John. The case is about how he died. I think a lot of people are gonna be like shocked when they see the truth.
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. We had a dog.
The German Shepherd named Chloe.
Yes, mix.
Describe that dog as being not great with strangers, isn't that true?
I did describe it that way, yes.
We find out after the fact that the Alberts owned a 70 to 90 pound German Shepherd that was inside the house that night. That was a revelation. Today, I'm going through the notes for Dr. Marie Russell. She's an ER physician, and she called us up and said, hey, look, I was reading about this case called Karen Reed, and there seems to be some controversy about whether or not some injuries are dog bites. I have extensive experience in this. Perhaps I could help. Based on your review of all of those materials, were you able to confidently come to any conclusions or opinions about the nature of the injuries suffered by John O'Keefe, specifically as they relate to John O'Keefe's right arm?
Well, they are consistent with a large dog attack. There's a combination of both what I consider bite wounds and scratch wounds on the arm.
Can you explain for the jurors what it is about the injuries that assisted you in coming to your opinion and conclusion that this is from an animal attack?
Okay, there's several patterns here. These are superficial wounds, which are consistent with teeth marks. And then over down here, closer to the wrist, we have an unusual pattern of at least 4 striations that I believe are caused from the teeth towards the front of the mouth, near the arch. It appears that there's an arch pattern here. Of course, I considered, what else could have caused these wounds? So having seen hundreds and hundreds of car accident victims and people hit by cars, I ruled that out very quickly.
Of course, the prosecution tried to block Dr. Russell from testifying by saying, hey, you just jumped on this. You contacted the defense saying, hey, I can come testify for you. And of course, she's getting paid to testify, right?
There were 2 experts called to the stand specifically to talk about dog injuries. One was a dog DNA expert who was sent 2 swabs from the arm of John O'Keefe's clothing, and that expert tested those for dog DNA.
What were the results of that initial test?
For the canine qPCR testing, we did not see any canine DNA.
There was no dog DNA on that, but there was pig DNA, which was interesting.
So for both the swabs, we did see pig. There was absolutely no canine DNA.
Now, as far as the pig is concerned, what, if anything, could that be from?
It could be from food. We've seen it come from cooked pork, cooked bacon. It would depend on where that shirt had been and what the person had been doing with it.
Thank you. I have nothing further now.
All right, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you. And that sample, the nuclear DNA sample, you're not saying that there was no canine DNA there. You're saying that the testing did not detect it.
In the qPCR nuclear test, yes.
You were able to detect the presence of pig DNA, right?
Correct.
And I think you said on direct examination that that could come from a number of sources, including food sources, right?
Correct.
Could come from dog treats.
Pardon me? Yes.
Could come from dog treats. Matter of fact, there are dog treats that are pig ears, literally.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
All right.
I believe so.
I want access to that dog. I might want to measure his claws. I might want to measure his teeth. I might want to have a forensic veterinarian look at the dog, examine the dog. And then we find out that the Alberts got rid of the dog.
It's just so frustrating because I've been someone who's always enjoyed speaking up for myself. Everyone who knows me knows I'm outspoken. And I like being there. I like being in control. And now I'm at the most important part of my life, my family's lives, my friends' lives, and I can't defend myself. I have to sit there on my hands and try to not have emotion with these jurors on one side, John's family here, and the cameras wherever the hell they are. And I know so much that I want to say, and I want to scream like, you little shit, who do you think you're fooling? Or you liar? And I want to scream at that judge, like, is this a game?
When the cameras are on us, they're coming in exceedingly close.
We've got like 20 messages.
There are people that are literally online lip reading you. I'm just telling you, that's not nothing. We don't want people knowing what the hell we're saying.
When you're on trial and the cameras are on you for the entire 8-hour day, they rarely move off of your face. And Karen says, an honest question, how do you want me to look? If she's too stoic, then she's uncaring. If she smiles, then she's not taking it seriously enough.
All right, so I won't look at you and say anything then. Like, we gotta take it easy. We're not saying anything.
No.
I also don't want to look bitchy, or like when I'm consternating or I'm frustrated in court, then I look bitchy. Don't show emotion. Don't arch your back. Don't cross your legs. Don't take a drink of water.
Don't
Don't
get
smile,
pissed
don't
at
eat.
me. I'm just the messenger, woman. The jurors are the only viewers that matter, and they can see through fake. Don't be fake. Just be yourself.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All parties having anything to do.
I think there's two versions of Karen Reed inside the courtroom. There's the version when the jury's present and the version when they're not. And when the jury is not present, Karen Reed is often looking back and talking to her family, who's sitting right behind her, laughing, making small talk with her attorneys. But when the jury is there, she is often very stoic, lips pursed to a degree, looking straight forward at the witness.
Before the jury comes in, she's posing for pictures with Yannetti and Jackson and these spectators who get to come in, and those are getting posted all over social media.
It was really quite unprofessional, the way they all carried on. A lot of giggling, a lot of fun. Yes. Well, John's family has to watch that.
There's a claustrophobic feel in that room. The defendant is maybe 4 or 5 feet away from us, so it was impossible to not notice Karen's demeanor. In between witnesses, during witness testimony, she would look over and mumble something to her counsel, and then she'd smile or laugh or turn around to her parents and roll her eyes.
Excuse me? This is funny, Ms. Reed? All right, we're done.
I'm sure the O'Keeffes hate every minute of this. I'm sure they hate every time I turn around, but does not bother me sitting that close to John's family. I've done nothing wrong.
Despite very brutal evidence provided where jurors were crying, there was not a single hint of emotion from Karen. Not a single moment did she show a modicum of sadness or loss. And that is telling to me.
Let's get to it. The one affirmative bit of information that they're going to try to get through is John never came in the house. I mean, that's going to be the next set of witnesses. Yeah, the next theme is John never came in the house.
At the house at 34 Fairview that night, you have Brian and Nicole Albert, the homeowners, their daughter Caitlin Albert, Brian Albert Jr., and some of his friends that he had over for his birthday that night. And then there's Jen McCabe, who's Nicole Albert's sister, and her husband, Matt McCabe, and Brian Higgins, the ATF agent, who is a friend of Brian Albert's.
At any point in time, did John O'Keefe ever come inside the house?
No. No, they never came into my home.
John never came into my house that night.
There were all of those people at the house that night, and every single one said definitively, I know John O'Keefe never came in the house.
No.
There may be witnesses in the house who didn't see John go in the house. He would have just walked right in, and if he met Brian Higgins, if he met Brian Albert, and they said, hey, come on in, John. Come on downstairs, let me show you something. Who upstairs would have seen that? There's a radio playing, there's music playing, you're drinking, you're half drunk, you're all drunk. You don't know if he came in the house or not.
Common sense dictates that John O'Keefe did not go into that house. When Karen Reed arrived back at the scene sometime after 6 o'clock in the morning, if she really had seen John O'Keefe go into that house like she now claims, she would have been saying, what happened to him? He went in that house. Who did this to him?
Ms. McCabe, you left the location about 1:45, is that right?
Yes.
Where was the body?
I have no idea. I'm assuming the body was on the front lawn.
There was no body, was there?
I never saw a body.
Thank you.
I wish I had.
So all these people leave the house that night, and nobody sees John's body on the front lawn off to the left of the property.
The driveway was on the furthest right side of the house as you're facing the house. And that driveway is where everyone parked that night. John O'Keefe's body was found on the furthest left side of the house. It was dark. It's late at night and freezing. People want to get in their cars. I would say you could be sober as a jaybird in those conditions and not have any reason to look over there.
If John didn't come in the house, then he must have been, by definition, he must have been laying in the yard having been hit by a car. Which is why, 8 months after the fact, Julie Nagel comes to the prosecution's rescue.
Julie Nagel was at the house for Brian Jr.'s birthday that night.
At some point, you went home that night?
Yes. Matt McCabe and Jennifer did offer to drive me home.
And what time was that?
I would say, give or take, like 1:45.
And so when you left, what, if anything, did you observe?
I did notice something out of the ordinary, like a black blob in the ground by the flagpole.
So this is a group text or a group chat with you and 8 of your high school friends about this investigation. Taking place on January 29th at about 10:52 p.m., correct?
Correct.
And your buddy Bird writes, she hot at least?
Yes.
And what was your response to that?
Yeah, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass. She's a whack job.
She's a whack job. That's what you wrote, correct?
Correct.
16 hours into this investigation.
Yes.
Into your objection.
There's been a number of sort of jaw-dropping moments in this trial, but Proctor's text messages were probably the most kind of like, wow. Are you kidding me, dude?
What did you write after you talked about going through the, quote, client's phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No nudes so far.
No nudes so far, correct?
Correct.
And you said that to your bosses.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked for naked photos of a male suspect that you were investigating?
I don't look for naked photos on anyone's phones.
But you said you were looking for nudes of Miss Reed, correct?
Like I said, Mr. Jackson, it was an inappropriate joke.
There were gasps, there was head shaking. I saw jurors making eye contact with each other who had not interacted in front of me before, like looking over their shoulders. Can you believe this is happening?
Would you agree, Trooper Proctor, that you have dehumanized Karen Reed during the course of your investigation with comments and words like this?
Objection.
I'll give you this one, Mr. Jackson.
Would you agree with that?
I would say based off that language,
Yes.
I've read posts on social media just about how humiliating it must have been for me and degrading, and I didn't feel any of those things. I felt bad that we all had to listen to it because it was disgusting, but I didn't feel humiliated at all. I didn't say those words, he did.
You can't read Michael Proctor's text messages to his friends and colleagues without coming to the conclusion that, you know, he was biased from the start, and that bias was reflected in the personal feelings that were ultimately exposed that he never thought would be exposed.
You responded to a text message from your sister.
Correct.
And your response was, hopefully, she kills herself. Correct?
Yes.
You literally said that you hope that Karen Reed, the subject of your investigation, the woman sitting to my left, about 7 feet from me, that she would just die. Correct?
The figure of speech.
Well, let's talk about your figures of speech. During the course of your investigation, your figures of speech include the following. She's a bitch.
Objection.
Is that right?
Yes.
A whack job, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
No ass, correct?
Yes.
She's according to you, right?
Yes.
And Trooper Proctor, it would be far easier for you to pin it on the girl who's just a whack job, in your words, who you hope just kills herself, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you, in fact, Google search how long it takes for someone to die of extreme temperatures?
I did in the morning at the request of your client. Karen was screaming, Google hypothermia, how long does it take to die in the cold?
How about?
And I picked up my phone and I started Googling.
You see this first search that says how long to die in cold?
I do.
What's that time?
2:27.
Now, you indicate that you did that, you made that search at 6:23 a.m., correct?
Correct.
And then you indicated that you did it again thereafter at 6:24, correct?
Correct.
And then of those 3 searches, one of them ended up deleted. Isn't that right?
I never deleted any search.
Ms. McCabe, you made that search at 2:27 a.m. because you knew that John O'Keefe was outside in your sister's lawn dying in the cold, didn't you?
Absolutely not. I did not make that search at that time, no.
Did you delete that search because you knew that you would be implicated in John O'Keefe's death if that search was found on your phone?
Objection.
Could you answer that, please?
I did not delete that search. I never made that search at 2:23. I never would have left John O'Keefe out in the cold to die because he was my friend that I loved.
The defense expert, Rick Green, he says not only did Jen McCabe do the search at 2:27 a.m., she deleted it.
We found a Google search that happened, and it was in a deleted state.
Okay.
So Adam Lally called 2 cell phone experts to say, hey, this didn't happen.
The assumption that that is the time of the search is a misunderstanding of the browser state DB artifact, because that artifact is not the time of search, it's the time of movement of the tab.
If, for example, at 12 p.m., I create a new tab, I can do a search for whatever I want. If I create a 12 o'clock tab, minimize Safari. I can leave it for several hours, for several days, for several weeks. The timestamp is not updated. So I can search for something in 3 weeks' time using the same tab I opened today, and the timestamp will show today's time.
But then you have a defense witness, Rick Green, who comes in and says that, no, those experts are wrong. They were using the wrong iOS. They were not using, I guess, the iOS that Jen McCabe had, and that's why he says their data is wrong. So it's a total battle of experts.
One of the things that Green did concur with is that Jennifer McCabe was also searching a private basketball team for her daughter. And by the way, after I do that, I should see how long John has until he dies on that front lawn where I just left him. Does that make sense? No, of course, it's rhetorical. It doesn't. It's absurd. It's ludicrous. What makes more sense is she went to the scene. Karen Reed was frantic and was asking her and the paramedic, how long is it until someone dies, having been left out in the cold?
All right, sir, you are all set. Thank you very much.
Sir, did you make any phone calls after you went to bed between the hours of 1:45 a.m. and 6:30 a.m.?
Yes.
Who did you call?
I inadvertently called Brian Higgins.
You say you inadvertently called him at 2:22 in the morning.
Yes.
How did you inadvertently call him?
Well, I don't know because it was inadvertent.
Is it your testimony, let me just ask, is it your testimony that you and your wife were in the middle of some sort of sexual or intimate situation, and that's what caused you to butt dial the phone at that time at 2:22 a.m.?
Objection.
One thing I can't reconcile is the idea of this sort of back and forth butt dial, that Brian Albert butt dials Brian Higgins, who says he has no recollection of the call, and then Higgins calls him back. The way I understand it, they're both saying that those were butt dials.
The butt dials are hard to believe. I mean, it just, and also the not knowing someone called you. I don't know what they were interacting about, and I don't know why they would be lying about it being a butt dial.
And then there's Jen McCabe.
There was a call at 12:14 a.m., correct?
Correct.
That was a call that you indicated was answered. You had a conversation with Mr. O'Keefe.
Correct.
Then there's the 12:29 and 44-second call that you indicated was not answered.
Correct.
There's a period of like 10 minutes where Jen McCabe called John O'Keefe's phone multiple times.
And you claimed at another proceeding that you had an explanation for all these missed calls.
I believe I used the word butt dials.
This was, sometime before 1 a.m. And the defense is gonna say, yeah, you know why? Because John O'Keefe was beaten up in the house and his phone dropped and they were all looking for his phone. So Jen's dialing it, like wanting to hear it ring. I don't understand how you repeatedly butt dial somebody over and over again in a short span.
The butt dials add to the suspicion. I mean, it depends on if the jury believes that there really were 8 butt dials over the course of 2 hours between 3 or 4 different people in one night. And if they weren't butt dials, why not just say what they were?
So you think it's possible that you may have butt dialed Brian Albert for a 22-second call that you're not aware of?
I always tell the truth.
Did you lie under oath, sir?
No, I did not.
Would you tell us if you did?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I don't know what the hell was happening in Canton, Massachusetts on January 29th in the wee hours of the morning. Some like bubble was around Canton where everybody's butts were doing all the phone calls.
So where's your phone?
I do not have that phone anymore.
You've destroyed that phone, haven't you?
No, I threw the phone away.
Well, that's destroying the phone, isn't it?
Brian Higgins destroyed his phone. He said he had gotten a new one, and so he just got rid of his old one. And Jackson and Yannetti are arguing that the reason he didn't hand over the phone is because he had something on that phone to hide.
I had every right to do that.
I didn't ask you about your rights. I asked you what you did.
Objection.
Sustained.
You destroyed the phone.
Why not just turn over your phone? Why did they act in the way that they did? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. And so I think that's one of the reasons it's so hard, frankly, for us to solve this case is because a lot of the stuff that would have helped is gone.
On direct examination, Trooper Paul was already a really nervous witness.
The vehicle accelerated at a high rate of speed before she struck the pedestrian John O'Keefe on the roadway and subsequently left him at the scene. Now, specifically with reference to this case, what, if any, analysis did you conduct with regard to kinematics? Yes, I did a kinematics analysis in my report. Kinematics deals with the aspect of motion. So in this particular case, I kind of labeled it as it's a forward projection crash with a side swipe. And in this situation where he gets more struck through the side of the vehicle on the taillight area, that it projected him to forward and then to the left due to this, like more of a side swipe manner. And his back could have struck the ground. I noted at the scene that there was asphalt curbing, which could have, somewhere he could have struck his head in there or somewhere along any of the pavement would have caused damage.
And then it was Alan Jackson's turn. Then the cross-examination of Trooper Paul was, I think, pretty devastating for the state. It was tough to watch.
Do you hold any degrees in the scientific discipline of mathematics?
I do not.
Do you hold any degrees in the scientific discipline of physics?
I do not.
How about in kinematics?
No.
The highest degree that you do hold, sir?
I have an associate's degree.
In what?
Administration of justice.
Alan Jackson just made Trooper Paul seem like an inexperienced, barely accident reconstructionist who maybe didn't even understand his own data.
In my report, I do say, I can't say that is definitively where the pedestrian struck.
Cannot say.
Definitively, yes.
Okay, so you're gonna have to slow down and speak up, okay?
Okay.
You said you cannot say definitively that that resulted in a pedestrian strike.
That data point within the tech stream data is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That specific points, that time frame.
Is there any evidence whatsoever that he landed and rolled?
And there was no evidence that he landed or rolled.
Based on your expert opinion, you believe that he was projected through the air to his final rest place.
That's not what I'm saying.
But you said there's no evidence that he rolled.
And there's no evidence that he flew through the air either.
Exactly. Right? Exactly.
Objection.
Sustained.
Trooper Paul presented a theory about John O'Keefe possibly getting hit by the car in the arm, sending him projected backwards, where he then lands on the back of his head on a frozen ground, causing many of his head injuries.
I've been dying to know this for 2.5 years, is what was the point of impact on John's body? Was it the back of the head? No, he fell back and hit his head. Well, all right, so did he get hit in the head by the car? But how?
No injuries on the shoulder, no injuries on the torso, no injuries on the ribs, no injuries on the back, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
So your theory is he got hit on the arm, took the brunt of the force from the taillight on the arm, stayed with the vehicle long enough for the taillight to explode, basically, to shatter. Then these striations get on his arm, abrasions. Does a pirouette, a spin, counterclockwise, and flies 30 feet in the air to his point of rest.
Yeah, it happened probably a little faster than that, though.
Actually said he hit his head on the curb.
I said that's one of the possibilities of when you look at the roadway, as he gets spun around kind of clockwise, it's a possibility that the curb is there.
All right, jurors will take the morning recess.
Good afternoon. A big day for this case. We didn't know if this person was going to be called. Well, today we saw the man. Lucky the plow driver that plowed 34 Fairview that morning and throughout the night during that snowstorm.
One of the other very obvious aspects of this case is if Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe at 12:31 on January 29th, at every moment after 12:30, his body's gonna be laying there, right? I mean, that's obvious. Except for the snowplow driver, who drives by at 2:30 in the morning, and his testimony was devastating to the prosecution.
What do you remember about that day, the 28th?
It was a potential blizzard. We had been given a start time. We were told to be in by 2:30 in the morning.
Brian Lawfriend was driving this snowplow that night, and he was, I think, a very likable witness for the defense.
We have two plow lights that are situated at the corners of the trucks, and it's up high. It illuminates very well.
How far can you see off to the sides, in front of you, and directly in front of you?
I can see a real long distance, probably 5, 10 feet, 15 feet out, maybe even further.
Now, are you familiar with the Albert residence on Fairview Road?
Yes. growing up in Canton, I knew where they lived.
And when you made that first pass by that residence at 2:45 in the morning, sir, with your headlights on, what, if anything, did you see on the front lawn in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
Did you see your body?
No.
He confirmed that, he went by that property and there was no body there at 2:30 in the morning. And if there was no body there at 2:30 in the morning, the case is over.
The people who support Karen Reed, especially the ones outside of the trial, told us that they really believe that Lucky's story proved the theory that John O'Keefe's body was not out on the front lawn that night when all those people were leaving that party.
Thank you.
I don't know what to make of him. He seemed like such a sweet, nice man. But it also became a little clear that his story had probably changed a bit over time. But then by the time he was testifying at trial, he was rock solid. This time I was here, this time I was here, this time I was here. I did not see a body on that lawn. Not changing my story, that's that. Prepped for trial. And unwavering.
Lucky friggin' hit it out of the park.
In terms of how Lucky held up, that was at the top of my
I
expectations.
gotta tell you, that guy won't be able to buy a drink in this town for the next 6 months. Right. He is a local hero.
The jury is going to have several options to choose from when they deliberate. She's been charged with second-degree murder. She's been charged with involuntary manslaughter. She's been charged with motor vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. And I believe, as a lesser-included offense, she could be charged with driving under the influence.
I think on closing arguments, we counted over 300 people out there that day, all there for Karen Reed.
So now we're at the point of the trial where the lawyers get to do their closing arguments for you. I've given them each an hour to do so, and they both tell me that they want me to give a 5-minute warning. So we will hear now from Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Look the other way. Look the other way. 4 words that sum up the Commonwealth's entire case. 4 words that sum up the hopes of those who have tried to deceive you. Conflicts of interest? Doesn't matter. Just look the other way. Late night calls and Google searches, falsified affidavits. Just look the other way.
Alan Jackson's closing was memorable. He is a phenomenal courtroom performer, storyteller, which is part of the job of being an attorney, especially a defense attorney.
The Commonwealth cannot explain John O'Keefe's injuries. They can't explain his head wound. They cannot, and haven't even tried, to explain the lack of injuries on John's body from the neck down. Nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Reed is innocent. Do justice and find her not guilty.
It was effective and artistic, and I thought it was vintage Alan Jackson.
I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. You heard testimony from 4 different witnesses who overheard and observed those statements from the defendant on January 29th, 2022.
Adam Lally is not the orator that Alan Jackson is. There was a lot of information, and he wasn't really that dynamic.
12/17/56, the defendant drives by the Temple Beth Abraham video. Again, you can see that on the video.
Mr. Lally, 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
And you could see the jurors losing interest a little bit. One gentleman just kept holding his head in his hand the entire time.
To the microscopic pieces, 1/16 of an inch by 1/16.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Lally. Wrap it up.
Yes, sir. The defendant drove her vehicle in reverse, struck Mr. O'Keefe, causing those catastrophic head injuries, leaving him incapacitated and freezing to death.
Mr. Lally, I have to stop you. You've gone over. Okay.
I literally have 1 sentence on Joe.
1 sentence I'll give you.
From that facts and that evidence, I would submit and electively demonstrates her guilt on each of the indictments before you, and I would ask that you find it so. Thank you.
All right. The insult of it all is Adam Lally ran out of time and the judge stopped him. Now, I don't know what he was going to say at the end, but I know that if you're making a compelling argument, you want to make sure the last thing you say is what sticks with the person or people you're talking to. So sadly, Adam Lally didn't get that.
Jurors, I have my instructions on the law I'm going to give you.
The makeup of the jury now is 6 women, 6 men. And we're just looking forward to finding out and hopefully getting that not guilty verdict.